Hey y'all, here's another installment of Professional Practices. Probably one of the most important, but yet my least favorite thing to do on the planet is documentation. So, the thing that I try to impart onto all of my students, it's that if you don't have good documentation of your work, if you don't have good images, if you don't have documentation of everything that you've ever done, you can't be an artist. It's because you have no way to prove what you've done, or who you are, or how beautiful your work is. So, what I want to start out with is showing you my really terrible file management system. Being that I don't have a file management system. My New Year's resolution for 2021 is to actually start doing this because when I go to apply to shows, it's a complete nightmare. My other big resolution is to finally start getting better documentation of my work. So I just want to start by showing you this. This is not good documentation. It's yellow, the shadows are weird, it's just sort of positioned in an odd way, and the work doesn't look its best. Opposed to something like this, where it's white. Particularly with sculpture, you want this to be like, if it's shot on a white background, you want that to be like ultra bright medical textbook white, like sterile Dexter room white. Which isn't to say that you're always going to show in the sort of like perfect white cube gallery. This place had nice gray floors. You're going to show in some places that have terrible carpet. You're going to show in places that have terrible lighting. You're going to show in places that feel completely impossible to get good documentation. But this is where you really need to learn how to do it yourself. The reason that I bring this up is that I paid someone a lot of money to take this image on the screen for me, because I've not been confident with my ability to document my work, and they did a horrible job, and it cost me a lot of money, and I didn't have good images of my work, and it was really hurting my chances for applications. So what I finally did is I finally figured out how to do it on my own. And that's not to say that I'm using a nice camera, because the very nice camera that I bought several years ago is maybe only like a 16 megapixel, and my phone has a better camera than that. I'm shooting almost all of my work on a phone right now. If you have a better camera, please, by all means, use that. You're going to be better served for it. I'm not very competent or confident with a camera, so I've just been using my phone and then doing all of the retouching and sort of post in Photoshop. The other thing is you want to try to make sure that you don't have yellow lighting ahead of time. Sort of do what you can to fix that. For like $100, you can get some soft boxes. You'll get that really nice blue lighting, but most places have a kind of like naturally yellowy light, and that's really the enemy with this. Sculpture students, you're gonna have I can never decide if it's easier to shoot sculpture or 2D work. Right now, I would say I think it's certainly harder to shoot sculpture because you're dealing with sort of things in space and things in the round. But this goes for 2D artists as well. And you want to have a balance of, and this is something I would maybe talk to sort of Andrew and John Mark about and your other faculty members, if it's more appropriate to have just the image, or if you want the image with a frame. It kind of really depends on how your work looks, how it looks when it's framed, so on and so forth. So here's my really bad file management system. Don't do that. It's bad. Everything's just sort of a mess. I have to dig through every time I want to apply. You can see where up here I was trying to get something a little more sort of cohesive that made more sense. This is all much better documentation. Things are improving. But what I want to show you is that sort of my goal for 2021 was to do this. This is a more recent exhibition. I haven't had a chance to go through and edit these yet. So because I'm not very confident in my documentation ability, I shoot like a million more photos than I think that I need, so that I can go back through and pick the ones that are good and pick the sort of the pieces that I like and edit it down into something that makes sense. I'm just trying to get to a 2D piece so I can sort of show you that. If you're doing more installation work, you're certainly going to have to shoot more than other people, just so you can sort of capture the space and the mood of everything. It's better to have too much footage than not enough. And this is sort of one of those examples of you may not always be showing in that perfect white cube gallery. There's a lot of project spaces popping up where they, it's not perfect. They've got weird floors, they've got weird walls. In this case, it's plywood. This is what I wanted to show you. And this could be lit better, but this is that you can show sort of the individual pieces, or if you are showing things in a grouping, something like that as well for 2D artists. So the other thing that I'm going to rant and rave about, and here I'll give you a sort of pretty picture to look at. This is another thing, if you are often when you're applying for solo shows, they'll ask you to do sort of a rendering of what you think the space will sort of look like with your pieces in there. Because I'm not super slick with Photoshop, I've tried to make these sort of like clunky, charming renderings. If you're good with Photoshop, I could see how it could look really nice to sort of have like your one big painting there, and then you can sort of try to skew the perspective for your other paintings or prints that you're hanging on the wall here or there. Just sort of work within your skill set. So look at this pretty picture while I rant at you about a few things. I had a prof in undergrad who would always scream at us and say, your life is a JPEG. And we all sort of thought it was a joke. And then the longer you're out in the art world, you're just like, oh, it really is. My work is only as good as my documentation of it. It doesn't matter how awesome the work is. It doesn't matter how great the installation is. If you can't prove how good your work is in a photo to a jury for a solo show or for a grant or for a single show to get into a group exhibition, then you don't really have anything. So not only is it important to get good documentation, and if you're great with a camera, awesome, you will do splendidly. If you're not, it's sort of that you're looking at the face of either hiring it out or really trying to figure out how to document your own work well. You always want to make sure that things are on a distraction-free background, that things are cleaned up, that you sort of remove all the blemishes off the wall, adjust the color correction, the white balance. But at the same time, you want to really sort of like represent your work accurately. So if you've got a giant scuff, or if your painting is for some reason slashed in half, don't go into Photoshop and fix it up and then send somebody like a broken, slashed apart painting. The thing that I want to leave you with when you're thinking about documentation, I heard a total horror story about how an artist's house burned down. And in their house, they had their computer that had all of their images on it, and they had their single hard drive that had all of their images on it. And this was before cloud. And when their house burned down, not only did they lose all of their possessions, but they lost any documentation that they'd ever been an artist ever. Their entire body of work burned. All of the video footage, all of the photos of it, everything was gone. And they had to start their career completely from scratch. So what I'm begging and pleading and begging of you is that not only do you have a file management system where you can find the work that you've made, that you have a sort of legible portfolio, but that you also have multiple backups of your work. This is going to sound completely paranoid, but this is what I urge you to do. Keep everything backed up on your computer. And I know that at a point you're going to have a ton of work and you're not going to want everything on there, but keep the things that you tend to apply with frequently on your computer. Upload everything that you've ever made ever, even if you hate it and you never want to show it again, it doesn't matter. Have everything in some sort of cloud storage. To have sort of unlimited cloud storage, you're probably going to have to pay for it. It will 100% be worth it. On top of that, I would have not one, but 2 hard drive backups. I would have one hard drive that you have in your possession at all times, that you sort of have in your house. And that's where you have all of your work backed up. So you're just like, Oh, I'll pull it over from here. There it is. If someone steals your computer, hopefully they won't steal your hard drive, and then you still have all of your images there. You also want to have a second hard drive that you keep in a secondary location. And this sounds completely paranoid, but I promise you, you will feel better if this is what you do. Have a second hard drive that you keep at your parents' house or at a friend's house, or if you have one day, if you're a fancy person and you have a studio separate from your house, keep it there. But have two physical backups of it. That means every time you go home for the holidays, you bring your computer and you upload more stuff onto the hard drive that you keep at your folks' house, your grandparents' house, whoever's house, or your best friend's house. Just have it in multiple locations. Who knows? Maybe one day the internet will just explode and all of your images will be gone, and then that's it. Then congratulations, you weren't an artist. Or maybe your house burns down and then you lose your hard drive there, but it's cool because you have two other backups. It's paranoid. It's a lot of work to keep it all balanced, but it's just the sort of fail safe, not just plan A, but that way you've got a plan B and C. I just want to make sure that you always have access to your work whenever you need it. So that is what it is. Your life is a JPEG. Learn how to shoot good images of your work. If you're fancy, pay someone to do that. Don't be stupid like me and pay someone who's going to do a good job. Or learn how to do it yourself. Certainly sharpen your Photoshop skills. I'm by no means a tech whiz, but I can figure out how to use the blemish tool and adjust my white balance, which is kind of all you really need to do. And that's about it. It's my least favorite part. I hate documenting my work, but we all have to do it.